Bad with Money, The Imperfect Art of Getting Your Financial sh/t Together, by Gaby Dunn. Introduction. Imagine you're sitting in a bright, bustling coffee shop. The air smells of roasted beans and warm pastries. Now, imagine a friendly stranger approaches your table with a microphone and two questions. The first question is a little personal, but playful. What's your favorite sex position? You might blush, you might laugh, but chances are, you'd answer. In fact, when our guide for today's journey, Gaby Dunn, actually did this experiment, everyone was game. Answers flew from all corners of the shop. Even the barista chimed in with an enthusiastic reply. People were open, laughing, and unashamed. Then came the second question. How much money is in your bank account right now? Suddenly, the air grew thick. The laughter stopped. People were horrified. That's a very personal question, one person gasped. It became clear that for most of us, the details of our financial lives are more private, more sacred, and more shameful than our most intimate secrets. Why is that? Why is it that the one thing that touches every single aspect of our lives, our work, our health, our relationships, our dreams, is the one thing we refuse to talk about? This silence is the dark soil where feelings of shame, anxiety, and isolation grow. We look at our bank statements alone. We wrestle with debt in the quiet of the night. We scroll through social media, seeing curated images of success, and we assume that everyone else has it figured out. We believe our financial struggles are a personal failing, a sign that we are irresponsible, naive, or simply not good enough. But what if that's a lie? What if our money problems aren't entirely our fault? And what if the first step to getting our financial lives together isn't a rigid budget or a complicated investment scheme, but something far simpler, an honest conversation? In her groundbreaking book, Bad with Money, Gaby Dunn doesn't pretend to be a financial guru with all the answers. In fact, her power comes from her radical honesty. She's not a millionaire standing on a mountaintop, shouting down advice. She's right there in the valley with us, admitting that she's been lost, confused, and at times, completely overwhelmed by it all. This book isn't just a guide, it's a revelation. It's a journey into the hidden architecture of our financial lives, exploring the family secrets, the societal pressures, and the psychological triggers that shape every dollar we earn, spend, and save. So, for the next few minutes, I want you to set aside any shame you might feel about your own financial journey. By the time we're done, I promise you'll understand not just what to do about money, but why you feel the way you do about it. You'll see that you are not alone, and you'll be armed with a profound understanding that getting good with money isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. Book summary. To truly understand our relationship with money, we have to begin not with a spreadsheet, but with a story. Our story. Long before we earned our first paycheck, we were learning about money. We were silent observers in our childhood homes, absorbing lessons that would shape us for the rest of our lives. A financial psychologist named Brad Clance calls these internalized messages our money scripts, and they are the invisible operating system running our financial lives. Gaby Dunn's own story is a powerful testament to this. She grew up in a home where money was a confusing mix of love, chaos, and contradiction. Her father, a man she deeply loved, was a brilliant example of the live for the moment philosophy. Battling addiction and a gambling habit, he taught his family that the future was an abstract concept. The universe will provide, he would often say. They took vacations they couldn't afford and threw parties that sank them deeper into debt, all under the banner of creating wonderful memories. As he once told Gaby, "It may have not been a good lesson, but we had a great time." On the other side was her mother, the family's breadwinner, a lawyer who worked tirelessly. Yet, She too was caught in a cycle of overspending, determined to give her children the life experiences she felt were so important. In a fascinating twist, she often bartered her legal services for things the family needed: haircuts, furniture, even party planning. They were living a life that, on paper, they couldn't afford, propped up by a complex system of trades and mounting credit card bills. These money scripts came from even further back, passed down through generations. Gaby's grandmother, Mamie, was a Holocaust survivor. Having endured unimaginable loss and pain, her philosophy was simple: life is short and brutal, so why not surround yourself with beautiful, luxurious things? She spent lavishly on jewelry, art, and fine clothing, a stark contrast to Gaby's other grandmother, Lee, a working-class hero who worked her entire life, saving for a retirement she barely got to enjoy before passing away. From Mamie, Gaby learned that spending could be a balm for pain. From Lee, she learned that saving for a future that might never come is its own kind of tragedy. These conflicting messages created a deep sense of confusion. Gaby and her younger sister, Cheyenne, grew up in the same house but developed entirely different money scripts. Gaby was hyper-aware of the family's financial anxiety, while Cheyenne remained blissfully unaware. This difference came to a head years later when Gaby loaned her sister $1,000 for bills. Hours after receiving the emergency loan, Cheyenne posted a picture of a $40 sushi dinner on social media. When Gaby confronted her, Cheyenne's defense was a perfect echo of their family's script: "I've been so sad about money, so I need to spend money to feel better." She felt she deserved a treat. This is the first profound lesson of the book: we are all products of our financial upbringing. Our habits, whether we're impulsive spenders or fearful hoarders, are often echoes of the lessons we learned at the kitchen table. And until we excavate those stories and understand their origins, we'll remain trapped by them. But our family history is only part of the puzzle. As Gaby makes painfully clear, the financial system itself is not a level playing field. It is, in her words, stacked against us. This becomes brutally apparent when we're young, during one of the first major financial decisions of our lives, college. Gaby shares the deeply relatable story of the intense pressure she felt in high school. At her school, a giant bulletin board was put up in the hallway, publicly displaying every senior's college acceptances. It created a toxic culture of competition, where the prestige of a school mattered more than its cost. Gaby had the opportunity to attend the University of Florida for free, thanks to scholarships and her parents' prepaid plan. But she was miserable in her hometown and desperate to escape. She pinned all her hopes on getting into an expensive, out-of-state school, seeing it as her only ticket to happiness. Her parents, acting on emotion rather than logic, allowed her to take on $30,000 in student loan debt to attend Emerson College in Boston. It was a decision made from a place of love, but one with consequences that would follow her for years. Her story is a microcosm of a national crisis. The book introduces us to people like Adriana, a graduate student who expects to be over $80,000 in debt by the time she earns her PhD. She and her friends see the number as so outrageously large that it feels like imaginary money. They joke about just dying with the debt because paying it off seems impossible. We also meet John Brunson, whose private student loans were sold and resold so many times that he began receiving letters from debt collection agencies he'd never even heard of, demanding thousands of dollars. He was trapped in what John Oliver has called a debt maze, a confusing and predatory system where your debt can be bought and sold without your knowledge, making it nearly impossible to track who you even owe. This rigged system extends from education into the workforce. The book powerfully dismantles the myth of the lazy millennial. Gaby draws on the work of journalist Nona Willis-Aronowitz, who points out that the stereotype of the entitled young person applies almost exclusively to the white and middle class. The media, she argues, portrays working-class young people not as millennials, but simply as poor people, erasing them from the generational conversation and ignoring their struggles within an unstable job market and a landscape of ridiculously low wages. Nowhere is this struggle more evident than in the world of unpaid internships. Gaby's personal story here is the emotional centerpiece of her early career. She landed her dream internship at The Daily Show with Jon Stewart in New York City. It was a pinnacle achievement, but it was unpaid. Even worse, her college wouldn't grant her credit for it. To make it happen, she had to enroll in a community college back in Florida and pay tuition, just so she could work for free in New York. She was literally paying for the privilege of working an unpaid job. The reality of that summer was brutal and anything but glamorous. She lived in a tiny room in Brooklyn, an hour from the city. She scraped by, hiding hard-boiled eggs under lettuce at the salad bar to save money. Desperate for professional clothes she couldn't afford, she even attempted to shoplift a skirt, getting caught in a moment of deep shame and humiliation. She tried pawning her grandmother's jewelry. The story culminates in a devastating scene where, after a failed attempt to sell her old belongings, the paper bags break, spilling her things onto a dirty Manhattan sidewalk. She collapses right there, on the concrete, and cries, completely broken. That experience highlights a dark truth. Unpaid internships create a barrier to entry, weeding out the working class and ensuring that prestigious industries are populated by those whose families can afford to subsidize their careers. It's a system that perpetuates inequality before a career even begins. After leaving the safety of a full-time job to pursue her own creative projects, Gaby entered the precarious world of the gig economy, a life she documents with the hashtag #FreelanceLife. She did everything to make ends meet, from freelance writing and nude modeling to delivering food for Postmates. She shares the surreal experience of being stopped for photos by fans who recognized her from YouTube, all while she was rushing to make a delivery, terrified she wouldn't get paid if she was late. She was famous enough to be recognized, but too broke not to have a side hustle. This exploration of family history and systemic failures sets the stage for the book's most vulnerable and courageous theme: the deep, undeniable connection between our mental health and our money. For years, Gaby struggled with her finances, believing she was just irresponsible. But there was another story unfolding beneath the surface. After several breakdowns, she was diagnosed with bipolar II, a mood disorder characterized by swings between depression and mania. She had ignored the diagnosis at first, terrified of the stigma. But as she began to honestly examine her life, she could no longer deny the pattern. Her financial history was a map of her mental state. During manic episodes, she was filled with a euphoric sense of invincibility. Life was a breeze, and money was just a social construct. She would make impulsive, grandiose purchases, a book on writing musicals, applications to graduate schools in Japan, convinced these were essential steps toward a brilliant new future. This is what experts call manic spending. During depressive episodes, the spending continued, but for a different reason. She was desperate for material things to make her feel better, a phenomenon known as comfort spending. No matter her mood, her brain found a reason to spend and a reason to avoid looking at her bank account, which she saw as too stressful for her fragile state. The book details a harrowing breakdown in 2012. It began with a manic decision to get unnecessary cosmetic surgery on her lip, which she charged to a credit card without having the money to pay for it. This was followed by a massive, alcohol-fueled birthday party that triggered a complete physical and mental collapse. She spent a week on her brother's couch, unable to eat, sleep, or even move, convinced she was dying. And yet, just days after this terrifying episode, in a moment of profound delusion, she did something utterly irrational. She bought a plane ticket to Europe. She told herself she deserved a vacation, but the trip was a disaster. She wandered through Paris and Madrid alone, racked with anxiety and drinking heavily to cope. she was hemorrhaging money she didn't have. The trip ended in a fittingly chaotic way. Her wallet was stolen in a Parisian bar, leaving her stranded without cash or cards. She had to call an ex-boyfriend to beg for a ride home from the airport, arriving back in New York emotionally and financially at her absolute lowest point. This story is a powerful illustration that our financial behavior is not always a conscious choice. For many, it is a symptom. Reckless spending can be intertwined with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other mental health challenges. And by refusing to acknowledge this connection, we add a layer of shame to an already heavy burden. So, where does this leave us? Trapped by our families, crushed by the system, and sabotaged by our own minds? Not quite. The second half of Bad with Money is dedicated to the imperfect art of getting your financial sh/t together. Gaby doesn't offer a magic bullet, but rather a series of honest, practical, and shame-free steps toward awareness and control. The very first step, she argues, is to simply look. Stop avoiding it. Gaby walks us through her own process of finally sitting down and going through her bank statements. She discovered where her money was truly going, and some of it was shocking, like a single month with $600 in Amazon purchases. The goal wasn't to judge herself, but to gather data. She explores the different approaches to budgeting, contrasting the strict, all-or-nothing methods of gurus like Dave Ramsey with the more forgiving philosophy of Susie Orman, who believes rigid budgets are like fad diets, doomed to fail. Gaby's approach is a middle ground. It's about awareness, not deprivation. She uses an app called Digit, which automatically saves small, unnoticeable amounts of money, helping her build a savings habit without feeling the pinch. Next, she demystifies the intimidating world of credit. She hilariously recounts her terror of walking into a bank to get her first credit card, imagining the tellers laughing at her ignorance. For years, she had a card that said cash rewards right on it but never used them, convinced it was some kind of trick. When she finally met with a banker, she learned she had over $200 in rewards just sitting there, unclaimed. It's a simple but profound lesson. Sometimes the system has benefits we can use, but only if we're brave enough to ask how they work. The book also delves into the complex role money plays in our relationships. Through her own dating history, Gaby explores the friction that arises when money scripts collide. She dated a broke improviser who, despite his own financial instability, was the first person to push her to become financially independent from her parents. Later, she dated a wealthy man whose abundance mindset was in constant conflict with her scarcity mindset. He simply couldn't understand her anxiety around money, and she couldn't comprehend his casualness. These stories reveal that financial compatibility isn't about how much money each person has, it's about whether their values and beliefs about money can coexist. Finally, the book tackles the big scary milestones: weddings, babies, and even death. It exposes the wedding industry as a multi-billion-dollar machine that profits from our emotions, with the average wedding costing over $33,000. Gaby compares it to her own 13-year-old bat mitzvah, a lavish, space-themed party that cost her parents $20,000 they didn't have, a perfect example of how love and peer pressure can lead to financially disastrous decisions. When it comes to death, the book offers a sobering but essential look at the financial aftermath of losing a loved one. We hear from Eden Dranger, who became an orphan in her early 20s. Her father passed away without a clear financial plan, leaving her to discover his bank account was overdrawn by thousands of dollars and that he had stopped paying his bills. She had to navigate a mountain of paperwork and debt while grieving, a painful reminder that preparing for death is one of the most important financial acts we can undertake. Throughout it all, the central message remains constant. This journey is messy. It's imperfect. There will be mistakes. But the goal isn't financial perfection. It's financial honesty, with ourselves and with each other. It's about breaking the silence, sharing our stories, and realizing that we are not alone in this struggle. We are all, in our own way, just trying to figure it out. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through Bad with Money, what strikes me most isn't a clever budgeting hack or a revolutionary investment strategy. It's the profound sense of relief that comes with Gaby Dunn's central message: you are not a failure. In a world saturated with financial advice that often feels judgmental and out of touch, this book is a radical act of empathy. Its power doesn't come from a place of authority, but from a place of shared vulnerability. Gaby's willingness to lay bare her own mistakes, the impulsive trips, the mountains of debt, the crippling anxiety, gives us all permission to be honest about our own. Why does this matter so much, especially today? Because we live in an age of curated perfection. Our social media feeds are highlight reels of success, exotic vacations, beautiful homes, thriving careers. It's easy to look at this digital parade and feel like you're the only one falling behind. We are lonelier than ever in our financial struggles because the prevailing narrative is that everyone else has it figured out. Bad with Money shatters that illusion. It reminds us that behind every closed door, and behind every smiling profile picture, there is a human being with a complicated history, a unique set of fears, and an imperfect relationship with money. The book's true genius is that it reframes the problem. It argues that if so many of us feel bad with money, maybe the problem isn't just us. Maybe the problem is a system that is confusing by design, a culture that prizes silence over honesty, and a society that ties our self-worth to our net worth. So, how do we begin to apply these lessons in our own lives? It doesn't start with a drastic overhaul. It starts with small, courageous acts of honesty. Here are 3 simple things you can do this week, inspired by the spirit of the book. First, have one uncomfortable conversation. Find one person you trust, a friend, a partner, a sibling, and share one small, true thing about your financial life. It could be admitting you don't understand how credit cards work. It could be sharing your anxiety about a future expense. Just break the silence. You'll be amazed at how quickly the shame dissolves when it's met with empathy. Second, take 15 minutes to become a financial archaeologist. Grab a notebook and write down the earliest money memories you have. What did your parents say about money? What did they fight about? What unspoken lessons did you absorb? You don't have to analyze it or fix it. Just acknowledge it. Understanding your money script is the first step to rewriting it. And third, look at one number without judgment. Just one. Log into your bank account and look at your balance. Or look at your student loan statement. Or simply look at your last 5 transactions. Don't spiral into panic or self-criticism. Your only job is to look. To acknowledge reality. That simple act of seeing is where all change begins. That was a summary of Bad with Money by Gaby Dunn. We've touched on the big ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The map can show you the landmarks and the general layout, but it can never replace the experience of actually walking the streets, hearing the music, and tasting the food. The real magic of this book is in the stories, the details, and the moments of recognition that make you feel truly seen. This summary is a signpost, designed to help you decide if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord with you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can fundamentally change the way you see yourself, your past, and your future. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Your support allows us to keep exploring these powerful ideas together. Let's continue this journey of growth, one book at a time.